For Honor's story has progressed a long way, but one character still remains at the forefront of our thoughts: Apollyon. And let's be honest here, she's easily one of the best villains, and not just For Honor, but video games, maybe even media in general. It's not her fighting skills or her evil viciousness that makes her so appealing, it's her ideals. The purpose she found, the cold but unique outlook on reality. Like most villains, it's not so much about how evil or mustache twirling they are, but what motivates them, what drives them, that fascinates us. Now, I've done a whole video where you can watch me go into deep detail on Apollyon's history, her ideals, and her impact, and I really encourage you to watch it if you haven't already. It's really good, one of my better videos, but there's a real question I want to tackle today. Horkos is supposedly trying to uphold Apollyon's legacy, and Astria, the leader of Horkos, is apparently trying to be her apostle. But is she worthy of such a legacy? Who is the better villain? Who's the better warrior? Does Astria really match Apollyon? Let's discuss that. Now, I'm not going to talk about who the better fighter is. I don't have enough information to make that comparison, but what I do want to compare are their goals, their motives, their ideals. And Astria certainly seems to stand for similar truths as Apollyon. Both believe that peace is weakness, or at least a path to it, and both seek to ignite war. They both believe that the strong should thrive. In this, they are very similar. But I think there are subtle differences, even then, that we can look at. Even in just the way they phrase things. Let's take the classic line from Apollyon. Let's start with this. Let's take the classic line from Apollyon. We've all heard it, but let's now compare it to Astria.
Who do you think you are?
War. I am war. We are war.
Now, you might not think that's much of a difference, and it's not until you see the subtlety of its meaning. What did Astria do when confronted with peace? Because if they're war, and peace is the opposite of war, how did they react to their opposite? How did Astria react to peace? Well, first, she amassed herself a literal army and started a massive corruption plague to weaken the population and straight up started a tyrannical takeover. This wasn't just a simple protest or an underground coup. She led a coordinated attack on Heathmore and uprooted it to the core. She attempted a hostile takeover, and her goals thus far have been to, as she says constantly, punish the unworthy, shepherd the strong, bear the mask of war, root out the weak. I haven't heard those lines a dozen times. You can think of Astria like maybe a prophet or a religious leader or a civil rights leader. She went to a bunch of like-minded individuals, convinced them that war was their best course of action and that the strong deserved to thrive, and led them on an attack on Heathmore. You can think of it almost like you have these warriors who are geared up for war, geared up for battle, then all of a sudden the Truce of Wyverndale happens and they're told you're no longer needed. You need to find a new line of work because we're going for peace now. And here comes Astria saying, look what they did to you. Look at how they treated you. You're the strong, they're weak. You don't deserve this. The strong deserve to rule over the weak. Think about Apollyon. Isn't that what she taught us? Well, I'm going to lead you. I'm going to lead you on a retake of all this. We're going to start a corruption plague. We're going to show these sons of guns who we are. We're war. We are war. Now, that's pretty classic evil villain stuff. But to add more to this, recently in this new season, we've learned through the Masquerade of Horkos events and little tidbits of facts what kind of stuff Horkos does. Like, sometimes they literally will eat the corpses of the fallen, participate in death matches to determine initiation rites, and take part in supposed blood rituals. I mean, could you get more evil than that? At what point do they kick puppies? If we're looking at who is the more evil one, I think it's pretty definitive. Astria definitely beats Apollyon. And let's be fair here. Evil's important for a villain. I'm not saying it's not. Evil's very important. Villains are defined by their actions. Regardless of how sympathetic or relatable they are, a villain must do some pretty antagonistic things. And these are some pretty twisted evil things. Apollyon never did anything close to this. But is evil what we're looking for? No. That's not the only thing that matters. Yes, villains need to do evil things, but there's more to being a villain than that. And when I do my Raven's Writing Room on villains and heroes, we will talk about this more. But this is something to keep in mind. A good villain, a really good villain, is more than just a mustache-twirling bad guy. Any villain can throw a lady on the railroad tracks and laugh about it, but that doesn't make you an engaging villain. It just makes you the stereotypical villain. You've met the criteria of villain. Good job. What makes a good villain is what is their motivations, what makes them dynamic, what makes them engaging. And you know what? That doesn't just have to be, relatability. You don't need a villain that you necessarily get, but one that fascinates you. When Astria says we are war, she's talking about Horkos, right? Her followers, her warriors. Much like how a Black Lives Matter leader might say we are one, or a Nazi might say we are the master race. She's referring to her and the collective of her group, but Apollyon did not say that about herself and the Blackstone Legion. She said, I am war. She was war. But why her? Because Apollyon isn't like Astria. Astria is out to make a change in the world through force and hostile takeover. Apollyon was proving a point. Really think about how Apollyon acted in the face of peace. She didn't rally followers. She was already with the Blackstone Legion. She didn't even start a hostile takeover or anything. In fact, she did something rather good for Ashfeld. She did something that many would see as perfectly natural, even savior-worthy. She helped the Iron Legion strike back against the Vikings, something they wanted to do because the Vikings were encroaching on their territory, pushing the Iron Legion to the brink, and she not only turned it around, she went right into Valkenheim and took it to them. That's what the Iron Legion wanted. And she just took it a step further by burning their storehouses, which, okay, maybe a step too far, but it's war, come on. This led to the Vikings fighting amongst themselves and eventually trying to take back Valkenheim. So she abandoned Valkenheim. And again, natural reaction. When your enemy starts to rally, time for you to pull out. But she left samurai loot behind for them to find. And plenty of people have argued, oh, they didn't actually do that, they didn't leave it. I would argue she did, because the docking area where Stagander takes over and finds the samurai loot, it was defended by Blackstone Legionnaires, and he even said himself at one point they'd done a poor job defending it, almost like they wanted the Vikings to find it, almost like they wanted the Vikings to take it over. But I digress. After the Vikings attack and crippled the samurai, again, it's what they do. In fact, you would argue it's a good thing for them because, as the raider said, that raid reminded us of who we were. It's a good thing. Apollyon took the next step and killed the Emperor. Now, here's your chance. Assume power, Apollyon. Take over. Take control. She didn't do that. She put another daimyo in power, which honestly was going to happen anyway, because with the Emperor dead, a new daimyo has to step in somehow. She was just making sure it was one of her choosing. And then finally, she let all the pieces fall into place and waited in her fortress. Yep, she just went back and waited. And when the battle happened, she was not only ready, she was expecting it. When Holden Cross formally betrays her and launches a trebuchet right at her doorstep, she says,
At last.
She knew this would happen. Every single event, betrayal, battle, and conflict was one of her making and choosing, showing a calculation to baffle the mind. But even this is not what I love about her. Oh, this is good, this is great, but that's not what I love most about her. Here's what I love most about her. This is the defining moment. As she's defeated by the Emperor's champion, she reveals the truth. She asks one simple question.
It's over. We will have peace.
Peace. So, what happens now? You all just go home? You came into my home. And you brought your armies. What did you think would happen? Peace? That isn't how the world works.
What did you think would happen? This question is what separates Astria from Apollyon. Astria wanted war, so she gathered an army and took over Heathmore. Apollyon simply reminded the factions of what war felt like. She reminded them of their nature, bringing out their natural warrior spirit and bloodlust. She pushed at the right strings, played particular points to her advantage so that no matter what her fate was, the end result was the same. Live or die, war was inevitable. What did you think would happen? Peace? You brought your armies to my doorstep. Did you think peace would come from that? Did you really think defeating me was all it took to put aside the differences? To make all the bad blood just go away? I'm not the darkness. I just reminded you that the darkness was always there. Now go out and make some wolves of yourselves.
My wolves.
Astria didn't remind anyone of anything. She simply took over everything to force a war. Apollyon was just rekindling flames. But if you want more proof, think of it like this. In the Masquerade lore, it's hinted that San Hu tried and failed to assassinate Astria. But let's pretend for just a moment that he succeeded. What would have happened? If Astria were to die right now, what would happen to the Civil War? Well, the Order of Horkos might fight a little longer. They might pick a new leader, but their morale would waver. Their prophet is dead. The one who rallied them is no more. The shepherd has died. But Apollyon? When she died, the Blackstones didn't rally. Hell, the Blackstones weren't even involved. She'd already played her part. She'd done what she'd wanted. She'd been the true shepherd, leading her wolves to the battlefield. That's why Apollyon's legacy was carried on. Why she's remembered. Because her message was told and illustrated in her death as well as her life. Astria's only thought was to take over Heathmore. Astria's legacy is only told through her takeover. I was playing with a few of my fans not long ago, and one of them said something that stuck out to me. For Honor seems to be going down a more edgy path lately. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether that's good or bad. You make up your own mind about that, but what I will say is that it explains a lot about why Astria is so different from Apollyon. Astria is very edgy. The things she does, the things Horkos does, is edgy. But Apollyon was subtle. She was fierce and a clear threat. She was obviously more idealistic, though. She was clearly... Apollyon just didn't care for power or for authority. If she did, she would have taken the Emperor's throne for herself. She would have tried to unite Heathmore together or something. She instead furthered the division. Astria, meanwhile, was uniting Heathmore for a common purpose. In fact, the more I think about it, the more Apollyon would despise Astria. See, Astria isn't preaching war, simply social Darwinism. Think about it like this. Let's pretend that the rebellion never happened. Let's pretend that season resistance never happened. Chimera never shows up. What would Astria be doing right now? Would she be fighting a war? Because her theory is that only the strong should survive. I'm going to rally the strong and punish the weak. So her war is against the weak, right? That's who her war is against. Well, you don't wage war against the weak. You don't wage war against the weak. Even Apollyon didn't do that. She didn't seek out the weak. She fought the Emperor's champion. She lured the strong to her doorstep so that they could fight each other. Her war wasn't against the weak. Because you don't fight the weak. You subjugate them. Let's pretend Chimera never came to be, and Astria just sits on the throne as Queen of Heathmore, where she can have her masquerades and death matches and cannibalism. Where's the war? Where's the conflict? She doesn't require these. Astria simply wants to separate the weak from the strong, and she can do that how she sees fit in whatever manner she wants. But Apollyon made it clear. War is how you define the weak and the strong, and it is through war that mankind finds meaning. Astria only looks like Apollyon because Chimera exists, because she has an enemy to fight. Without a war to wage, Astria would become the very self-important and pompous leader that she herself criticized. the very kind of person Apollyon would think to be a coward. Remember how Apollyon felt about that lawbringer who abandoned her hometown when she was a child? She dragged him out into the street and declared to the people how he was weak and how he had dared to pretend he was strong. And that's likely how Apollyon would feel about Astria. To Apollyon, Astria is just power hungry, seeking authority and position through Apollyon's ideals, while Apollyon is a true idealist. Astria is just using those ideals to further her own goals. In fact, Astria is a heretic of Apollyon, twisting Apollyon's ideals to further her own ends. Now, it could be argued that Chimera was Astria's intention. She wanted a rebellion to rise up so that she would have a war to fight in the first place. Maybe that was her goal. And if that was her goal, okay, then fair crop. That's better, right? But that's not what has been said thus far. That's not what we've seen thus far. So far, all we've seen is Astria preaching social Darwinism, that she's going to punish the weak, even of her own people. She's going to go through Horkos and look for the weak amongst them. She's not fighting all of Heathmore to determine who's weak. She's just determining who's weak in general, including her own people. She preaches social Darwinism. Apollyon preached war. And maybe it's not intentional. Maybe that's not what they intended. But it's likely what she's doing. So, which one's more evil? Yeah, definitely Astria. Astria is the more evil villain here. No question. But who's more provocative? Who's more engaging? Who's more terrifying? I'd have to go with Apollyon. I genuinely think Apollyon is the superior villain, and I think that if Apollyon were to see Astria, to meet her, I think she'd hate her. Just say, you're a pretender. You're a pretender. You're using what I taught and what I started for your own ends. Sure, Apollyon wouldn't have liked the Truce of Wyverndale, but she would have found another way to get the war kicked up again. She wouldn't be trying to do a hostile takeover. That would not be her goal. She'd want further division. Or maybe I just read too deep into things. I don't know. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun to make. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button because we're so close to our goal of 2,000. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment below. What did you think about this video? Do you agree that Apollion's a superior villain? Or do you think that I'm just preaching a lot of hot air? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also below is the link to my Teespring store in the description so that you can go and check out my merchandise. Really appreciate it if you throw some bread at your boy because I am in desperate need of some bread right now. I'm getting ready to finish up my move, and that means I'm pretty tight on money right now, so any help would be much appreciated. If you'd like to join the Discord, the link is also below. Love to have you join the Order of the Raven. We have a lot of fun on the Discord, even if it does get a little crazy sometimes. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in my next video. Take care.
Well done.